Hi from HOFA again for another HOFA-College studio workshop. Today with me, Thorsten Häufler is holding this workshop. He's a presenter. I'm just the guy who's asking the stupid questions. And yeah, what are we talking about today?
Thank you, Jochen. And there are no stupid questions, you know. It's,
You will see.
It's always stupid answers, and this is my part. So yes, today's workshop is called From Sketch to Epic Orchestration, which means we want to show you a kind of approach how to bring a simple sketch, for example, with a piano,
Just a melody.
a melody and a kind of harmonization, which is a very common kind of working when composing and when working with a DAW. So how to bring a sketch to a more or less well-sounding piece of orchestral music. It can be epic music, can be classic orchestral music, can be hybrid music.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the idea for today's workshop, and I'm happy to have you here at my side.
Yeah, I'm glad to be with you and with all the guys outside.
And
Bobby just writes he's been so excited for this one.
oh, that's great.
Great. So I think I suggest we just start right away with playing, no?
Yes.
Or do you want to say something about this piece first?
So, of course, welcome, warm welcome to all people outside watching at YouTube, and you are heartily welcome to ask your questions in the chat. We are following the chat here, so if there are any questions, please feel free to join us, and we try to answer them at the best as we can. So, let's dive straight into the DAW. My suggestion. And well, I'm working here in Cubase. It's the DAW I know the best, working for a lot of years with Cubase. But in the end, it is not really important if you are working with Cubase or if you are working with Ableton, Studio One, Logic, whatever you use, and you feel comfortable. So if we have this kind of project, I would like to make this a little bit more visible for you.
Okay, this is piano, two piano sounds from Alicia Keys, yes.
Correct.
And the one on top is a melody, and the one below is the chords.
So maybe for the beginning, who are we addressing with this kind of workshop? So you don't have to have the big knowledge of music theory. It of course would be great if you have a kind of understanding for instruments, and if you play an instrument, it would be great. But we try to address to all those who maybe are starting in the production of electronic music, and hopefully we have also a little bit of content for those that are a little bit more experienced. So we try to find a balance.
From what I've heard, there's a lot for everybody.
Okay, so if we imagine we would have an idea for a melody, for example, and we are using here some well-known musical pieces, this kind of music, maybe you know this melody, I just play the melody for itself. So this is really as simple as it can be, and it's from Hans Zimmer, from the movie No Time to Die, which is, I think, 3 or 4 years old, and it's a kind of a really simple melody. And if you have sketched this melody with the piano, the next step would be that you try to find the fitting harmonies. So to give this a little bit of a little bit more musical touch. So let's check out what is this sounding when you play melody and the chords together. melody is now going only an octave higher, but the chords stay the same. This is the sketch.
This is a sketch. You worked with some reverb on the piano, so there's some kind of atmosphere.
Correct.
And the mood is rather, well, let's say mellow, and it's not a fast tempo. So
Absolutely not.
things like tempo and mood is something you have to be, you have to know about when starting the process, I
Right.
guess.
In this case, of course, a lot of people, they know the movie and they know from which scene this piece is coming from. It's the ending scene when James Bond is dying on this rocket. Yes, spoiler alert. Sorry, but of course, this is really an emotional theme, and it's the kind of simplicity which is in this piece. As you see, the melody is only changing between A and F, and then you have here this. This is not really an A sharp. It's a B flat, but this is a Cubase thing. It's trying to figure out which is the correct scale, but in this case, it's really a B flat because we are in F major. But nevertheless, it's just, you see, this is orange because this note does not really belong to the scale of A minor, as Cubase is thinking this is A minor, but we are not. Anyway, too much theory. Really simple. And the chords for themselves, we can watch this here in this view.
So it's actually D minor in the
Right,
beginning.
D minor.
Yeah. And then B major, B flat major.
Right. So this is really, really simple, but it's setting the right mood.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So let's make it epic, huh? Don't we?
Maybe we try just to have an idea what we are talking about today, and we start with some strings, I would say.
Okay.
Some kind of percussion, right? Oh, there was a glitch.
Okay. There's a lot to discover, I guess.
I think yes, it's more now for the hearing, for the impression. As you see, this track really doesn't have a lot of tracks. It's only 24 tracks, so we are working really on a minimalistic way. But yes, you are right. There are some elements which are absolutely worth to have a closer look. So, of course, we have this kind of strings which are absolutely essential when it's about orchestral music.
Yeah.
If it's classic, if it's epic, strings, and we are talking a little bit later about how to arrange the strings in the correct way. This is only just a short example to give you the right mood. We have some brassy elements here. So brass is the second component of an orchestra, which is absolutely essential for this epic sound. And it's not really too much here. We have some percussion, we can have a look at. Maybe we check out what is going on here in the strings.
Right.
Okay, for those, I think we changed to the piano roll. Maybe this is a little bit more useful. Everything you see here is the same as we had it in the piano sketch.
Mm-hmm.
So what have we done? We take the notes from our piano sketch and we copy them to our string patches. We have some more projects where we can show this in more detail. Only for this beginning, I thought this is quite simple to follow.
Yeah, it's easy to understand.
Easy to understand. For example, if we play the strings for themselves, we have several libraries here, which is Berlin strings. Maybe a little disclaimer, everything we do here, we are not sponsored by any of those companies we are now presenting. If it's Orchestra Tools, Spitfire Audio, we are doing this for you. And this is all instruments I use personally. So this is not a recommendation for you to buy anything from this stuff or to use anything from this stuff. This is only instruments I use personally to work with. And
so when we're talking about violins, we're talking about violins and not about
correct
some library or whatever.
Correct. It's only about the sound of because to produce orchestral music, Jochen, you know this very well, is that you have kind of understanding of how an orchestra is working. An orchestra can be a very complex body of different sounds, from the double basses and the tubas and the contrabassoons, which are in the low frequencies. You have the celli, which are in the mid ranges. You have the violas. You have the violins, the first violins. You have woodwinds. All of these sounds create an immersive impression. And if you don't know, even working in a digital environment with such kind of samples, if you don't know how the sample is sounding and how they sound together, you can end up in a very big mess. Right? So it's very good to practice this in this type, just to figure out what sounds good and what is not sounding that way you may expect it. I had this very, very often when I have an idea in my head and I try to transcript it into the DAW, and in the end the result was very awkward. So you have...
Yeah, I think it starts with simple things. You have, of course, to know the range of an instrument. You don't have to play a contrabass in the fifth octave, for example.
Could be a little bit difficult, yeah. And of course, the different types of instruments. So a woodwind player or a brass player, they don't have endless breath. So it's absolutely unusual if you have a sustained note which goes over 8 bars.
Yeah, but a string player can do it.
A string player could do it, but a brass player, then you need some kind of first aid in the end. But nevertheless, if you know this, you can put it into your editing, and you have to respect this, that it sounds more realistic if you have short breaks. So if you have long passages of woodwinds and brass playing, there must be a place where they would breathe to play the next note. So just listening to this kind of strings arrangement here, just set them on solo. What you hear is this sustained part, but you also hear this kind of rhythmic.
Yeah, there are some accents.
Some accent, which is somehow the motor, the engine, which gives it a little bit of rhythmic impression. And this is what we call
the spiccatos.
The spiccatos. Now you hear anything, because I said it's on solo, was a great idea. So in the piano roll it looks like this. Maybe we make it a little bit like this. Yeah, this is only the D and the A, which is the fifth and the root. And you see in this MIDI part that there are different velocities here. So we have an accent on the first note. Maybe we... Right? It would be very, very boring, or maybe, yes. If you set this all to the same velocity, it sounds very mechanical.
Yeah.
Right?
That's something I found before when we went through your projects, that you always have these kind of accents in some ostinatos or phrases or whatever.
Right. This is the first and I think the most important thing if you are producing orchestral music, that you know how, or that you can imagine how a string player would play his part. And the shorts, if it's spiccato or staccato, whatever, they have a natural feeling for how to play the strings. And mostly the accent is on the first note, like in this case. Right? And it would have a different character if we make something like this, for example. This increasing character, or if you make the decreased character. But we want to have this kind of pulse, this kind of engine which drives the complete piece.
These are important words, pulse and drive. I think that's very important. Yeah.
So we would do it like this, and then it sounds a little bit more realistic. Right? And you have the, in this case, ensembles, which means these are more than only, this is basses, celli, violas, violins, all together in one patch, which I only use normally for this kind of sketching. And we can have a look here. And here the velocity is not that important. What is more important in this case is the expression and the modulation. So the modulation shows how the volume of the sound is modulated during the play. So if we take a listen to this, you hear this swelling and the decrease.
Okay, maybe just a short explanation for all those who are not extremely familiar with MIDI and controllers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
These are MIDI controllers who are mapped to a certain character of a sound.
Correct.
And this in this case, it's the modulation. I think it's for the volume, or what does it change?
Yes, you have two different types of volume, so to say. You have the modulation itself, which is mapped to CC1, which is the MIDI control, the continuous control on a channel 1, and you have the expression. So I can show this maybe the best. You sometimes, if you watch people creating music with the keyboard, you often see that they have two fingers at some fader ports. I can explain this the best here at the keyboard. So if we have this ensemble patch here, and I have mapped my CC1 and my CC11, which are the expressions for this instrument, and this is the chamber strings of Spitfire, and you can have a watch here. We have expression and we have the dynamics. So the dynamic is by CC1, and if I put the expression on full throttle, I have the dynamic, and which sounds like this. Right? And the expression itself is a second way to modulate the sound. And then you can combine both to give more expression to your sound. And in those sustained parts, you always mostly, or it's a question of your personal taste, but this kind of curves which you see here in this MIDI editor, you have often this kind of 2-bar increase and decrease figure. It's kind of a figure. We can make it a little bit more clear here in this way. Yeah, we can use this wonderful tool in Cubase to draw these lines, and we can also modulate the expression a little bit.
And the expression gets a little bit brighter sound when when it's turned up, and a little more darker sound when it's turned down.
Yes. Yeah. So in for some libraries, it depends. It depends a little bit on the library. But
Sure.
If you are working with the modulation, it also can be that there will come a natural vibrato. So it's when the string players start to vibrate the strings to give this typical vibrato sound. This can also be parallel mapped on the CC1 channel. Some libraries have a separate control for the vibrato, but in this kind of library from Spitfire, this chamber strings, which I really like a lot because this is somehow this intimate sound of strings. Right? The swelling and then the decrease. And this sounds more natural.
Yeah, and it's so essential. If you
Right.
don't do this, and if you don't do the accents in the spiccato strings, it sounds flat, it sounds boring, and
Right.
it does
Correct.
not have
It's
any atmosphere.
unnatural. Right. It's unnatural. And we don't always want to sound very, very realistic. It's about we want to have a sound which we like, which we really can anticipate.
And which transmits some
And
emotion.
which has the emotion inside. So all this together here in the strings, these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different strings. We have the Berlin strings and we have the spiccato. Now the second part which we took here are the woodwinds. And the woodwinds, they do the following. I also chose here a ensemble patch from, in this case, Majestica from ATO. And the woodwinds, they do the following. So we have in the lower range the bassoons, and we have the clarinets in this range. And of course, there's some effect here. We can skip this for a moment and make this solo. So now you have the sound as it comes out of the box from the library, right? And if you put this together with the strings, because strings and woodwinds, they work perfectly together. This is something you also have to know. It blends perfectly together. And if we make this together, you have this rich, warm, stringy and woodwindy sound. We can maybe mute the staccatos for a moment just to have the sustains. Right?
But we can already hear the movement in it.
Correct. So,
Great.
and the third part, of course, is the brass. And the brass is, especially when it's about epic orchestral music, is so essential because there is a big variety of brass instruments within an orchestra, from the low ranges like tubas and cimbassi, and of course then the trombones.
Bass trombones even.
Bass trombones, of course. A lot of libraries don't have bass trombones because this is, it costs more money. Then it's not $300, it's $400, and then you have the bass trombone. But yes, you are right. And of course, the trombones, the French horns, trumpets, of course, and all these instruments have their own character.
Absolutely.
And it's a different if you only have one trumpet as a solo trumpet, or if you have two trumpets, or think that I have libraries from ATO with 66 trombones. You have to imagine 66 trombones within a room, and then they play. It's unimaginable, and of course you have to know how to work with this kind of libraries. Otherwise, your sound it is devastating. You know,
absolutely.
Brass instruments are really to be used carefully and well dosed, because they are so present that they can ruin your complete track, but they are totally essential to give this kind of epic character.
Just a second. There's a question in the forum, in the chat. If you're using the same company libraries or the same libraries for this combined string and woodwind, he is struggling to mix Audio Imperia and East-West libraries for different instruments.
Richard, I totally understand what you are meaning, because all this Audio Imperia stuff is brutally loud.
Okay.
And East-West stuff is because the East-West libraries, I don't know which kind of East-West you are using now. I have the Hollywood strings, which are, I think, 16 years old, 18 years, I don't know for sure. It's a very, very, very old library. But in my opinion, almost one of the most realistic and typical Hollywood sounding libraries. I can show you this, and I can show you how you can fix your problem which you have with the struggle. When we just listen shortly to this passage here of this brass, what is going on? Maybe we take this one here, because there is a little bit more brass, and we just solo the brass for itself. Right, this is this low.
And again, modulation and controller movement.
Correct. And we have here 6 French horns. I think this is East-West. Yes, comes from East-West. It looks like this. And this is really, this play engine was a little bit a heartbreaker for a lot of users, because they didn't like this kind of engine. And this is the latest engine of play. East-West reacted, and they developed the Opus engine 2 years ago. But I like this engine a lot, because it's an old one like me, and we fit perfectly together. It's all right. I don't care about the engine. I care about the sound, and the sound is really, really, it's a nice brass sound. And of course, there's some effects here on this sound, just for the case. But listen only to this brass for itself. Right. The modulation. Yeah, with this increasing kind of brassy character. And this is what it sounds together in the complete beauty, with strings and spiccato, and we have some pizzicato here.
And the melody.
And the melody.
Yeah, but that's the thing to say. A piano is also an orchestra and an epic instrument.
Can be, and the special thing about piano. Why is piano so useful when sketching music? Because a piano is a universal instrument. It has the low frequencies, it has the mid frequencies, it has the high frequencies. You can play it percussively. You can play it very emotionally.
And you can play all notes at once.
Yes, I can. Yes, of course. And maybe somebody knows a componist like Hauschka, which is I think he won the Oscar for Nothing New at the West.
Okay.
he has, or Simon Stockhausen, for example, which is one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest sound designers we have in Germany. And also his father, he was very popular in sound design. But Simon Stockhausen, he is really a multi-instrumentalist. And he makes sounds of pianos by putting, I don't know, some marbles on the strings and playing them and sampling this. And you can make crazy things with a piano. But in this case, it's, I think,
just a piano and
it's
some
a
reverb.
piano for itself. And yeah, it helps a lot to sketch out an idea.
Yeah, but it fits in the arrangement, and
Yeah.
the melody transports the emotion and the movement. It's all there.
I'm quite sure that in the original track from Hans Zimmer, there is the piano in the beginning, but not in the main part. I just put it there for showcasing. But well, yes, a piano is an orchestral instrument, can be used in the orchestral as an orchestral instrument. Sometimes it's maybe a little bit too much, but it's only for showing that we came only from this simple idea here to a totally different track. So this is only one short example. Shall we, Richard, I would show you what you mean, or maybe what your problem is, because I think I understand this. We take the what, I don't know, what do you use, nucleus? I think nucleus, but it doesn't matter. You can all these audio imperial libraries have the following effect. I just show it here, and I parallelly open a East-West library, which is where is it? Here. And we open the string section. So also now loaded.
Here we go.
Here we go. So just maybe that you can see this.
It's hard to work on one screen.
Yeah, so East-West is an ensemble patch, and you have basses, cello, violas, and the second violins. And this is a very delicate sound, and I have a sustain pedal, I think, here. So if you take the bass, right? We have the bass sound, we have the cello and the viola, and we have the violins. And this is this library where you can choose and select the vibrato by modulating the sound. So if we have this simple D minor chord, right? And if I increase now the modulation on CC1, you will hear the vibrato. Now it's less vibrato, and now it's more. Now, in the comparison to an Audio Imperia library, you have to watch out. You have a modern mix and you have a classic mix. And I think you are working in the modern mix. And I just changed the sample start. And now you will hear the difference at once. I have to put down the modulation. So this is the bass. And this gets freakingly loud. Right?
Okay.
Immediately you hear that you will not hear anything from East-West when you combine those together.
So you have to work with different settings from modulation.
Correct.
And
So
controllers.
If you have this both together now, you only hear nucleus.
Okay, yeah.
So what you can do to bring this a little bit more into balance is really to put down the volume of nucleus dramatically, so that you have a more balanced sound between those both libraries.
Yeah.
It's wide, and it's not so. The nucleus and area and how all these libraries are called from Audio Imperia, they are really loud. Or you can go to the classic mix, which is not that kind of processed. There's because in the modern mix you have, I think, there's compressors, equalizers, and blah blah blah, all this malaka. And classic mix is really the more pure sound, right? And then it's not so in your face, right? So this modern mix is of course very useful if you are going to produce trailer music or this hybrid stuff. You can use this, but if you really want to have a nice, delicate sound, it's better to bring those libraries a little bit down, and then you're good to go.
Okay, that's cool.
It was Talos Brass and the strings from East West Fantasy Strings that sounded particularly bad together. But Talos Brass has the same effect. It's also, I think, this modern mix, which you have the compressed sound, the equalized sound.
Yeah, don't work.
Try to bring this from the volumes in a better balance, and then it should be fine. And yeah, Fantasy Strings from East West is also this was the first library, East West Strings from Hollywood Strings from East West, and Fantasy Strings was the I think it's now in the new Composer Cloud. There's Fantasy. I don't use it because I think I have enough libraries for the next 200 years. But anyway, yeah, this was just for the beginning. I think, Jochen, did we also say that we are going to intend to make a little break?
We wanted to make a break like after an hour or something, but
so
we can.
We are fine. We are fine.
We can maybe switch to another project, or do you want to stay on this?
Now, no, this was just for the beginning, right? So this is really only an example. Now we want to get a little bit more into the. I don't know. Maybe we take this one.
Oh yeah.
When we are talking about epic music, what we are now going to do now is, I think everybody knows this Game of Thrones thing, right?
It's
Ramin Djawadi.
Like an archetype of epic music.
And also this kind of music, because this theme from Game of Thrones, and as much I have to admit, I never watched one episode of Game of Thrones, so because my children, they inhaled this from episode to episode, but I don't know why I didn't watch it. But
the music.
I listened to the music.
Yes, music is great, and really, I watched the show from the very beginning, not till the end, but from the very beginning, and I really remember hearing the theme for the first time and watching the intro of the first episode. And it was like, okay, this is going to be great.
Yes.
I knew it from the first string line.
The first notes they say everything. Yeah. And I was always wondering, I heard this music, I couldn't figure out what kind of music this is. And I started, I think it's, when was Game of Thrones starting? 8 years ago, 9 years ago?
Yeah.
I don't know. Even more.
Yeah.
So I started to play this on the piano because I like this melody so much. And my son, he came through the door and said, "We were playing Game of Thrones music." What? What is Game of Thrones? Yeah, and then he explained it to me and told me the story about this. I'm out. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm in the music, and the music, it goes like this. And this is also now the piano sketch for this beloved Ostinato. So we are starting in C minor, and we're going
It's so simple, but it's just great.
Right.
Just switching one half note.
Correct. And this is the theme. And now it goes back to the root. Okay.
And again, accents and rhythm
Yes.
in this ostinato.
We are here in a 6/8 measure. So this is a metronome which is a little bit more complex. But so in music theory, this is kind of a complex measurement. But in fact, it is very often used for pieces where you need the movement, where you want to have this kind of pulsing, repeating rhythm, because it's not really a double 3/4 measurement, because 3/4 you have the accent 1 2 3 1 2 3, and in the 6/8 you have the rhythm like 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. So you have this movement inside one bar.
And still the main accent on
Correct.
the one.
And this is what you hear here in this. No? Dum dum da da dum dum da da da. This is a typical 6/8 rhythm. Nevertheless, a rhythm is only one part of your music. The next thing is the harmony, right? Okay, I made a little cheatment here. I have a MIDI effect inserted here,
Yeah. Okay.
which is the arpeggio. I can turn this off for a moment because I was too lazy to put the arpeggio inside, right? And you have a counter melody here. So this is the question answer thing, right? And we make this up.
Yeah, but you need some imagination for that to make it into an epic piece.
Yeah, it's at the moment only an idea, right?
Yeah.
Now we come to the B passage. Correct. So we know all this.
Yeah.
And the idea was about this kind of how to bring it as close to the original as possible, right? Because Ramin Djawadi is, of course, using extensively rhythmical elements here, like the drums, and I think we take a here to the complete piece, and then we look
yeah.
at it. And yeah. Oh, sorry, my mistake. We should start from the beginning. Yeah, you have this viola. We're getting a little bit bigger, adding the first violins.
Yeah. Extending the range also.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so but it's mainly the melody and the chords and the two melodies you've been using with the piano sketch.
Correct. Everything you have here in this sketch is the same that you find in your orchestrated piece,
Okay, cool.
by only taking parts from the melody and adding it to different tracks with different instruments.
Yeah, and that's sorry to interrupt. What I see different from the piece before, you've been choosing different sections like viola, violin, cellos.
Yes, correct. So we have dropped a little. I have dropped a little bit this idea of putting everything in one ensemble, but to make a kind of divisi, which means basses are playing bass notes, celli are playing bass notes 1 octave higher, and violas and violins, they discuss who is playing the fifth or the third to give the harmony to the piece. So if we would also solo this strings.
So maybe just one question, one stupid question, like I told before. When we're talking about divisi, that is a word that's often to be heard in orchestration, but what exactly does it mean?
Well, divisi is the kind of how you spread your notes within a section of string players, for example. So if you imagine, we can show it on the keyboard. I think it's the best. I would like to take our beloved ensemble patch. I hope this is the right one. Yes. So as you can hear, you hear nothing, and why you don't hear anything, you will hear later. Okay. So why divisi and why so from the beginning, what is a chord? A chord is a combination of different tones. In the most common one is the triad, right? So you have a C triad, which is this kind of chord. You have a root, you have a third, a major third, and you have a fifth, which is the G. And you put it together and you have this nice C major triad. Honestly spoken, it doesn't sound bad, but it sounds a little bit, it says nothing.
Yeah,
it's quite, because this is not the way that string players would play. And if you play it in the lower range, it's only one, it's this dark spot at the wall, you don't hear anything. Okay, because our hearing is not very good in the low frequencies because we cannot divide the different frequencies here in this area. It's easier for our hearing in the higher ranges. So, coming from our C major triad, this is the root position of a C major triad. Now you can split it up and you say, okay, my root goes an octave up, so my E is now my root note. So you have the first inversion, and you have also a C major chord, but in the first inversion. It sounds a little bit different. And you can put the E 1 octave above, and you have the second inversion. Also a C major triad, but a different sound. Now, we put, for example, the root, which is the C in the bass.
With an octave.
In an octave, or we can also make it unisono, but we take the octave because it sounds nice. We put a cello, maybe, I take the sustain, here on the fifth. Maybe we put the viola on the third. And we put maybe the second violins on the root. And maybe we put another first violin on the fifth again.
And another stupid question, this is defined by the ranges you're playing in. Oh.
Correct. The bass has a limited range where to play, because here, starting from here, you are in the cello area. I think we can see this. So you see, this is the bass range here. So this is what the bass sounds most realistic, because they start on the C. This is the lowest note a bass can play. So this is the reason why you can't play a vibrato on C, because you cannot. It's an open string. You cannot do anything.
Makes sense.
And the cello is the same, but it's an octave higher, right? So this is the lowest note a cello would play, also without vibrato. And well, you have the violins and you have the violas, and now it's up to you how you spread a chord. So we can make it. I can make it. Maybe we go here to the end, just only for showing this a little bit more detailed. We just make here one bar, or we make 2 bars. So, and here in our piano roll, I just quickly draw in this C bass note. Just give it a little bit of a shape, like this. Now we can decide what we want the cello to play. I want the cello also to play the C note, right? And I want maybe the viola, and now I'm starting to divide the chord. I'm spreading it. I want here this G, and I want an triad here. Maybe this is a little bit too loud. I was just like put this a little bit down. Okay, and then it sounds like this. Right? So you have this C major chord in the root position, and spread it widely
On the whole string
on the string section. Of course, you can take this C note and we put it in an inversion. We put it on the E. Now we have the C missing here above, so we put this down, for example. We put the cello a little bit down here again, and then it sounds a little bit like this. Maybe we make it this way. It's more dense.
Yeah,
right?
but it's complete different
Complete
mood.
different.
Yeah.
Because the E is now the bass, and so it is not the best idea to have the G in this area, as those both notes are a little bit too close. I would like to put this an octave above and put the C below. Right? So it's a totally different sound.
Yeah, that's highly interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you put the G in the bass, but then we have to go an octave higher here, and we have now G, C, and G here. So we need the E. Put it there. It's also a C major chord, but we divided it into its elements, right? So this is what it's about Divisi. Try to spread your chord to the parts where they fit the best.
Yeah. Okay.
And
but you can even make it in smaller units, like say the first violins play C and the second violins play the E and the violas play the G below and stuff like that.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct. So like you don't play a string section like a piano. So you don't want to have the chords too tight. You want to have a wide spectrum, because the basses come normally from the right side, the cello come a little bit more from the left, violas and violins are in the middle, and the first violins on the left side, right?
There you say something. That's very interesting. Do you work with those real orchestra settings, and when you have American or German setups, do you combine them, or do you try to get the same sound?
It's an interesting question, Johan, because it depends a little bit on how a sample library has been recorded. Those East-West libraries, for example, they have those settings already within. You see the microphone positions here, and the basses, they have already been recorded so that you have them on the right side, right? So if I play this bass sound, you hear it clearly it comes from there. And playing the first violin, it comes from there.
Yeah.
So, honestly spoken, there is not too much you have to do here. It's more interesting than when you are using libraries with single instruments, of course. And if you then have this effect that the bass comes from left and right, but you want to have it in the middle, you have, of course, you have to work with the panning, or you have to put it more on the right side, or you have to shape the frequencies if you want to have it more in the back, or if you want to have it more in the front. Of course, this is then a little bit more complex. But normally, right out of the box, there is not too much you should do with the sound, because the libraries are so well recorded that you have a good sound right out of the box. It's more about finding the correct volumes for the instruments so that they don't fight each other.
And the right controller settings.
And the controller settings, maybe. So this is a more prominent example. We have also here this kind of engine due to the spiccatos, which is right, and they are played Albion 1 spiccato, and I think this is ATO. No, this is Aria. Okay. This is from Audio Imperia, because it has this very, very sharp sound. You have a little bit of sharpness in the mid frequencies, right? And we have this viola part here. This is Adagietto from ATO. It's quite loud. And you hear this legato transitions. Where does this come from? So legato means you have bounded notes. So every note is bounded to the another note. And if you have a movement like from an A to an E, or from an E to an A, you have this. You hear this going up, or maybe we can trigger this legato effect. Yeah, if you have to have a close look, the notes are overlaying a little bit, overlapping, because of we want. In this case, I want to trigger this legato effect, which is this sound.
So like the strings are playing a slide, but not changing the strings, but the...
Correct. If the string player plays it depends on in which region on the neck he's playing, but if he's changing from an E to an A, he can use this kind of movement with a middle finger, and then you have this effect.
And there as well, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they will probably play that Daddle note on the same string.
Correct.
But playing, jumping in an octave or something, they will change the string.
Correct.
That's it.
Right.
Okay.
So this is a little bit more compound. It's sounding cohesive, right? And this legato effect is quite it's quite good in this library.
Yeah, sounds nice.
Yeah.
So that's something you always have to think about, which articulation you're going to choose. Legato, spiccato, pizzicato. And you don't have to know all these articulations by heart, but you have to know what they sound like at least a little bit.
Yeah, it's a question of practice and how often you work with orchestral libraries or making string arrangements, and then you learn how different instruments are played. It's totally important that you use this kind of modulation for the dynamic and for the expression. If you play sustained notes, so if you have this in your heart and in your mind, you are good to go, right?
Yeah, but that's something we talked a lot about in our course about the orchestration, the producing orchestral music. That's so important to know these those articulations of different instruments, of different sections.
Correct.
What the difference between sustain and legato sometimes can mean.
And
stuff like
marcato
that.
and ribato.
Okay, yeah.
There are string instruments are very versatile instruments, and if you have seen, you know, it's a violinist or a violin player or a cello. A cello is such an impressive instrument because I'm always wondering how they find the correct notes without having any frets on the neck, like a guitar. You know, a guitar is very similar to a piano, to be honest.
Yeah.
But a cello, a viola, all these instruments, it's really impressive how
I tried to learn it once a few years ago. It's not easy.
No, and it's also not a pleasure for your neighbors and
it wasn't for my parents.
Not really, right? So, but these are really versatile instruments, and of course you can play them damped, you can play them consordino, which means you have some kind of a damped sound by layering some piece of it's fills. What is it in English? I don't know.
Felt.
It's a pattern. Yeah, it's a felt, right? Put a piece of felt. You can play them pizzicato, which is this typical picking sound on a string. You can play them with rosin. You can play them without rosin. So this wax which you put on your bow, totally devastating. What you can theoretically know about those kinds of instruments, but you are good to go if you know the simple things of play it with modulation, play it with dynamic, play it with expression, and use articulations like spiccato and staccato always with velocity changes.
Yeah.
Not only like a machine gun, but use it in a kind of logical and well-sounding way. And then you are totally fine. And then it's okay.
Okay, that's something I would like to say. I think we are at a point where we can make 5-minute break just to release our visitors
ears and to get a fresh cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed this so far. In the second part, we are going a little bit more into detail, and we are having a little bit more louder music and a little bit more. I can tell you, we are going to listen a little bit to Dune.
Oh yeah, great stuff.
Yes, and we are going a little bit to the Caribbean. So there is something to come in the second part. So please stay with us, and we will be back in 5 minutes. See you.
Okay, we're back.
Back again.
Back in business. So, you talked about doing the song from Dune or a song from Dune.
Right, you're right. Also from Hans Zimmer, and this is called Quiet Between the Storms. Maybe for those of you who are familiar with this soundtrack of Dune, which is kind of special because he uses instruments which are not really the classical components of an orchestra. Like there are e-guitars, there are ukulele pipes, there are dudukes, and there is a lot of vocal going on. But it all started, and it's always the same story, with a kind of melody. And the melody, it sounds a little bit like this. That's all what you will hear today in kind of melody. So, very simple, also very emotional. It's now the question how to get the harmonies under this melody, and they sound like this. This is an interesting chord. This is a D over A D over B, and has this really delicious sound, like a little bit of romantic, classical E minor, B minor. This is an A sus with an E. Yeah. And those both bars at the end means there is ending, right?
Finito.
Finito della musica. Well, in fact, this is everything it's about. I took myself the freedom to put a little bit of an intro to this piece, as we are going to present the instrument after another, step by step. And yeah, it shall sound a little bit like this. Yeah. This
Nice.
is a little bit more than the examples we had in the first part. And I think the interesting thing about this kind of piece is the sound and the usage of instruments which you not automatically would consider to be orchestral instruments.
Yep.
Even if we have a lot of orchestral elements here inside this piece, but we have this kind of duduk, which is of course it's a combination of two different sounds I have used here, which comes from SoundPaint. This is a sound set from, I think it's it's 3 duduks, and it is an ornamented legato, which sounds like this.
Just sets you in a certain mood with the first note.
You're sitting in your Bedouin tent and cooking some rice or whatever, watching the sun goes down, whatever. No, it has this really oriental, but very smooth and emotional character. I like this a lot. And what Hans Zimmer did here is really to use this kind of instrument to set the complete mood for this film, for this Dune.
Yeah.
And
of course, it fits with the desert setting and the stuff. Yeah.
And I have doubled this with another duduk, which comes, I think, is also ATO. Yes, it's ATO, and this is also a really nice sound for itself. Yeah, with vibrato.
Oh.
It's really
Awesome.
good sampled, good job from Charles Follman from ATO. Yeah, and together it's quite nice. What else is going on here? Of course, we have used some synthesizers here. There is this low drone. I don't know. It's okay. It's from Alexander Hacke. It's from Orchestra Tools. Stable Foundation. It's a drone which is doing what a drone shall do. It makes a pedal note, right? And it has this kind of bagpipe feeling. Because I have to admit, I don't have a library which has proper bagpipe samples, but this is quite close.
But there's also some movement inside.
It goes. It's modulated a little bit.
Yeah.
But I have it comes out of the box. I made nothing. Only here's some kind of some reverb here, which is the IQ reverb from HOFA, which is not sponsoring this video. It's really, I'm using this reverb in any production. I think I love this plugin really, because it's easy to use. It's optical, very impressive, and it's technically on the absolute top. I really use it, of course.
And it's a rather long reverb there with 5 seconds around. Like that,
it's but this we have presets in IQ Reverb that are much longer,
That's
which
true.
goes up to 30, 40, 60 seconds, and this is the nice thing about the IQ Reverb, because it's using convolution, algorithmic, and hybrid effects. It's really, I think, one of the best plugins, reverb plugins ever worked with. Then we have the new synthesizer from Synapse, which is the Legend.
A synthesizer.
Yes, and how can it be? It's the Hans Zimmer edition. Does anybody know this guy over there? Yeah, maybe somebody heard of them. The Legend is I think this is a Moog.
It looks surely like.
But it's not only a Moog. It would not be a Hans Zimmer Moog, because the Moog, I think, only has 2 oscillators.
No, the Mini Moog actually had 3 oscillators.
Had 3. Yeah, we have 6, right? So
okay.
we can settle this a little bit up. And this is really, really great. It makes the following. It's playing, I don't know, yes, here. It's a pad sound, but it's a very, very delicate and clear pad, right? Crystal bright, kind of vocalish a little bit.
Yeah, nice color.
Yes, and we have here Glorious Planet, which comes from my beloved Pad Shop. As a plugin which is totally underestimated in the production. I love
it's really useful. You can be so creative.
It's really, even with the granular synthesis possibilities you have in Pad Shop, it's unimaginable. And it's really, really, it's a stock plugin from QS 14, so you're good to go.
Yeah, but this is something we are at an important point here, I think. It's about the importance of sound.
Right.
If you choose the wrong sound for the right note, it won't work.
Absolutely.
So especially if you're doing slow songs and with some mood and emotion to be transported, you need the right sound for every note.
Absolutely. Because you also have the question, what is my main instrument which I want to have present, which I want to have presented, and I don't want, because the duduk is the prima ballerina in this sound. I want the duduk in the front, and all the others they have to cue, right? So they have the chance to support the sound, but I don't want my synthesizers or my strings to be more present than the duduk.
Sure not.
It shall all be in a very good balance. And this is only the intro. The intro is the part where the instruments are invented, where we are setting the mood. Interesting. It's getting interesting in the B part here when we start to bring more instruments here. We have, for example, now the strings that come here, which is something. So many strings, my God. Okay.
And it's combined ensembles and separate instruments.
Right. I have used here, for example, also from Soundpaint, the Adastra strings, which is something you have to get used to, but it is a really nice, deep, low frequency in the double basses. I have used the beloved Symphobia, which is also an oldie in the orchestral sample libraries environment, but it's still one you can use wonderfully as an additional supporting sound. We have the violas, we have the cello from Symphobia, we have double basses. I have this Araya ensemble here, and I think I nearly used them everywhere, the Hollywood strings, because this is, in my opinion, well, I told you, it's one of the greatest. Yeah, they sound like this. And they are playing the chords, the harmony. So the chords which we had here in the piano,
you split them up
split them up to the strings. I can show you.
Divisi, as I learned.
Right. And then later on here, when we try to increase the momentum of the song, we layer the violins on top.
Still muted.
Oh, you're right, muted. Thank you. Yeah, just to increase the momentum. Right. What else we have here? This is a, I would not say it's a trick. It's a kind of technique to use a kind of subwoofer, a sub bass, just to support the low frequency, the low end in the track. And we have a listen to it without sub, and I will switch it on during the track, and you will immediately hear the difference. what is the effect when you're using a sub bass with a string arrangement.
Oh yeah.
Right? Without and with.
Yeah, and that's a difference between a real orchestra and a virtual one. Yeah, you can do that with a real orchestra.
It's
Won't be
right.
possible.
But this is the reason why we are working in the digital workstation,
Yeah.
and we keep our fingers away from real musicians. With no, it's honestly spoken, it's in a real orchestra, it's more or less not necessary because you have a totally different setup, a totally different environment, and because what are we working for? This music is intended to have a function in a movie or in a TV show, whatever, and you want to have an audible impression, which you cannot do with live players, but we can do it here in our digital working process. So we are only adding, because if you hear this for solo, it's not doing much. It's only frequencies below 100 hertz. So this is, I think, 50. We could check it with an analyzer, but this is around 180 hertz, right? So it's not too much. And if you're not hearing by headphones or good monitors, you will hear nothing, I suppose. But completely. It has this supporting effect. Then we have a vocal. You hear it in the beginning very clearly, which is really nice. It comes from Atlantis, which is...
She's singing the melody that's been
Right.
in your piano idea.
Honestly, it's only this part here, and copy and pasta to the solo vocal. Make a little bit of editing, of course. And what the hell? What's going on here? There. And yeah, it sounds like this. Of course, hell of reverb. Can it make it a little bit more direct? But it's excellent recorded. Excellent recorded. And
it's playable somehow, isn't it?
It's absolutely playable.
Yeah.
Absolutely playable. Look, this is the range where you can play the sounds, and we can play any kind of melody we like within this range. I hope I've... And every time you trigger a note, you have a different phrase, which is what?
It really would be interesting what she's singing. But
I'm not sure if you really want to know, because I think this comes from Italy, and maybe they are yelling at us. I'm not sure. No, but this is from Stefano Maccarelli, and this is his wife, Laura Sorace, and she's a brilliant singer. You hear it from the quality of the voice, and all this comes from Zero G libraries, which... They're not too expensive, you know. This is not a library. I think it's $100, something around 100 euros. Not too much, but it's really, really excellent.
and again, that mystic and atmospheric sound that fits.
You can play it for hours and hours and hours, and there is a bunch of different. Look, this is all what you get with this libraries, from heroic true legato, fantasy true legato, Venezia true legato, la 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 la. It is
okay.
I'm not sure if it's possible to listen to everything within one day, but nevertheless, I thought in this case it's quite nice. And yeah, then we have here this drum section, which is really not too much in this kind of track. What is going on? It makes something like this.
Okay.
Low.
It's both like an impact and a sub bass thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
And there is something in the tail going on, like some.
Flutter.
Oh, shut up! Of course, we have this for the transitions. I think this is a topic where we could make a separate workshop about transitions.
Swells are of course important. Yeah.
Yeah, but the transition for itself in songs, and not only for the orchestral music, even when you are songwriting, if you're making pop songs, the transition from one part to the another part, they are so important because they are preparing the listener to what is going on, what is coming next.
Yeah.
And in this kind, it's a very simple transition, only with a simple swell, but it has the right effect. Yeah. So this is full sounding, and here in this last part where we are on the climax of the sound, I have this Jacob Collier audience choir.
It's
This guy is freakingly amazing, and you hear this. This is really recorded from some of his live performances.
yeah.
And
I know a guy who's been there, who's part of the choir.
Yeah, welcome to the show. But it sounds really. It's crazy.
No,
It's not a realistic sound choir library, but it's immediately you have this Jacob Collier choir. Totally.
And because it's so massive and so many different vocals blending into one sound. That's nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like this guy so much because I think he's one of the most talented musicians actually on the planet, and he has such a deep understanding of music harmony and reharmonization.
Yeah.
The perfect pitch he has, which is I think 1 of a million people have perfect pitch. This is really, really great. And we have what I like the most, if you have this kind of climax here in the end, I wanted here to have a sound which has a little bit kind of a signature impact. And this is it's a kind of brass sound, but not really. It comes from analog brass, from output. And this sound I have put on here some kind of I think this is a Fab Filter Saturn,
Distortion.
Or
saturation.
It's a saturation, right? We can bypass this for the moment, and then the sound is like this, and it's also only playing the melody.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of brass, kind of synth, whatever, and within the Saturn, it gets this crunch. Right?
All right, yeah.
So, dudux and together. Dudux are still there, but in this moment, this destructive cluster takes the role, right? And why? Because we are here at the climax, at the ending, where we want to have this final point. Yeah. So Jochen, this is the example where I wanted to show how important it is to know how the sounds work together, how they meld into each other, what is sounding good together. Even if we have orchestral elements, we also have this synthesizer elements. We have this sub basses, which are really which has nothing to do normally with the orchestration. And but it works. It's working.
Yeah,
Right?
that's the freedom when you're doing epic music. You can use whatever fits the story.
Correct.
That's what epic music is about: is
Correct.
telling a story.
Right, right. As we know, this epic, this terminus of epic is something. There is somebody who wants to tell you something. It's telling you a story, and it should be impressive and it should be remarkable. And it's not only about the melody, but it's also about the sound. It's how a sound is anticipated, how it's received. And yeah, this is our Dune example, and I could imagine, as we have said before, we want to make a visit to the Caribbean.
Oh yeah, I love to.
Yes, it's great weather out there, and I just have to check if I have already opened this. No, but this is not the problem. Then we will open our hub again. So if there is something in the chat going on, Richard told us also the 0G sample libraries are amazing. You are totally right. And
So yeah, while you open the project, just let me maybe for all those guys who are watching us and wondering who we actually are, let me tell you just one or two words about what you're watching and who we are. We are HOFA-College, and yeah, we are usually teaching audio engineering and music production, and this workshop is a part of our campus content, and this one is free on YouTube, but if you want to learn more about it, go to hofa-college.com and take a look at our courses. You can learn almost everything about audio engineering and music production, and even get yourself a degree with a bachelor's degree, and yeah, it's quite interesting. And I see the project is
it's loading
almost
and
there.
loading and loading. Yeah, because this is kind of a little bit bigger project, and but so as Jochen told already and said, this HOFA-College is not a conservatory for music teaching. So this is what we are trying to do is to bring you closer to the technique and to the kind of workflow, how to work with DAWs. Because in the modern audio engineering, the times with tape machines and everything, I think there are some guys out there in the business, they know the tape machines from the past.
I still do, yeah.
And I think in the vintage style, I think it's quite... there are some composers who still use tape machines when sampling or working with samplings. But honestly spoken, if you are in the digital production, if you are producing R&B, EDM, whatever you are going to produce or what is your favorite, you will work digital, and it's so important to learn how to work, for example, with a compressor, how to work with an equalizer, what is going on there, what is limiting, what is it about the working with different microphone types. And the field of audio engineering is such a big area, and what we are doing here is only a little part of how to produce, how to work with all these techniques which can be applied. And I think it's part of the production process also to talk about this kind of music,
Yeah.
this kind of production.
Understanding of music and sound is
Right.
is essential for a good project or a good product in the end.
So I have here a project where we have different things you see on the screen. I made a kind of marker track here where I wrote down the chords we are using for this part, and I just play the melody, and maybe you will recognize it, hopefully, if it's not too bad. Okay, we hear nothing, which means I have made a mistake. Yes.
Yeah, it's not connected.
Yeah, it's because this is not my audio interface, it's Jochen's interface. My project didn't know it, but now it's now they are linked. Yeah, it sounds like this. I turn off the chords. And this is the love theme from Pirates of the Caribbean. So who was waiting now for dum dum daddle dum dum daddle? No, I have to really annoy you. This is the melodic part of the movie, which is I think it's called William and Kate. I think it was William Kate. Yeah.
Okay.
And I made this by hearing. I thought I didn't have the notes or the score. I just took it from what I was hearing there. But this is the melody. So it's clearly in A minor. And I put down the chords here for you to follow this up. And together with the piano, it's like this. So quite simple. Oh no. Quite simple piano sketch with A minor, G major, E minor. So we are really in our scale. The only exception here is this E sus, E major chord, which is the transition to F major and C major. Right? This is the more brighter part of the song before we come back to A minor. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, let's listen with the.
Now listen to the complete track.
Full metal track.
Full metal jacket track here. Off we go.
All right. That's almost classical.
That's really true, because here is nothing synth-like except the syn bass here in the low, but only to support the lower frequency. All the other parts are really orchestral instruments. And okay, this track is not finally mixed. It's coming right off the sketch mode here from the piano, but we have this kind of percussive elements like the tubular bells here in the beginning, which are setting this accent. We have these tubas and horns, and I'm not quite sure that this is something from Iconica, right? Which is the library Iconica Sketch that you get if you have Cubase 14 in the Pro edition. You get this sketching library within. So this is really for sketching. It's a really good library, and we have the woodwind sections with flutes. We have the violins, Divisi in basses, in violin, in ensembles. The chamber string ensemble is playing this kind of pulse here. Right?
With accents again.
Accents again, of course. Celli and also a solo cello. Which is the cello from Tina, genau, it's from Cine Samples, the Tina Guo solo cello. But I think there is something missing because, yeah, right. I thought there was a little bit of unhearability. There it is. Make it a little bit like this.
And up it goes.
And in the complete context, then it's better. And we have some choir here in this region from the Lacrimosa choir. Also with modulated expression. Right. We have Appassionata strings from Spitfire Audio, which for itself is a great library. I could change it to this.
Okay, yeah.
You see this dynamic change here. And it's playing a counter melody. It's not playing the normal melody, it's playing the counter melody. There is nothing inside, which is truly mysterious. But anyway, you get the idea of what is going on in this kind of piece of music. And I think we didn't talk about how we can work with this kind of MIDI files, because I have some tracks here. Of course, I played live. I played it in, but I also took, as I am a lazy guy, as a lazy bone, I take this kind of melody here, and I switch it onto a track I would like. I would like to play this, for example, by a clarinet, for example. So I could create a clarinet track. For example, we take from Nucleus, we take the clarinets, which we will probably find here in the woodwind section. There we go.
Good to know.
Clarinet sustained. The only thing we have to change here in this library is the sample start, because it has a track delay of 150 milliseconds. And I changed this to 0 milliseconds. So what we're now hearing is without latency. Right, and now I would take this. Always name your tracks.
Absolutely. I can sign that.
Yeah, and then you copy this track and you drag it down here to your clarinet. Oh, there we are. Now it sounds a little bit like a circus trumpet, right? But we now have to check about the expression, because this is a very soft starting. We don't want the clarinet to play that loud in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
We want to play it softly.
Oh, wow. What a difference.
A little bit of a difference. And as we spoke about in the beginning, those woodwinds and brass players, they need breath, because it's an instrument that needs air that goes through the ventiles and through the pulp. But therefore, the player needs breath. In this case, lucky we are, we have enough space, so we don't have to be afraid that our clarinetist will drop from the stage. But I think he will survive it. But the expression is really important. So when a soft increase and a decay. Maybe like this, for example. So, but we make nothing. It's only the MIDI part from the piano, and we dropped it onto another instrument, and instantly we have this track. We can make it with the flutes. Of course, the flutes, they play in a different register, so we should bring it up a little bit. Now this is piccolo range.
Mm-hmm.
We can bring it down to alto flute. And what else we can do is we can double this, and we let clarinets and flutes play together, because those both, they combined and they sound very well together.
What they actually do in an orchestra, right?
Correct. And what also is working very, very well with woodwinds are the strings. Always a nice sound effect, a nice mixture if you use, for example, the violins and the woodwinds together. Right? But violins, they play a little bit different. When they play the sustained parts, they play the notes a little bit longer, right? So we don't want to have these breaks here. It's better in this case to have a full sustain, but we are increasing our modulation a little bit, and we go down to the end, so that we can start with our expression and our dynamic in this part when the next phrase is starting. So we now should have this soft starting. We have a swell here, and we will have a decay on this portion, and go up again at this, in this region. Yeah, this should work. So you have this natural, more or less You have this more or less natural feeling when playing with a violin in this case.
Yeah, but that's so important. I think you have to know the instruments, to know which instruments fit together, which instruments work in which range, what kind of articulations are there. And when we listen to the different parts of that song, that was extremely interesting for me to hear for the first time. You put the melody on different instruments. One time from the flute, and one time with the brass, and one time with the strings.
Yes.
And each time it's a different impression.
Right.
And that makes it so interesting. It's not full arrangement the whole time, but it's always adding up, getting down, and
it's a kind of
movement.
Dialogue, you know. It's a kind of dialogue.
Exactly.
In an orchestra, there is a dialogue between the instruments, because if everything plays together, you have this tutti orchestral effect. But then in all this tutti sounding orchestral libraries, you mainly hear the brass instruments, because the brass is so immersive and so pregnant and present that this woodwinds will drown the strings. They will drown because the brass elements they play the complete frequencies from 150 hertz up to 3000 hertz with this. I can show you an example with a solo trumpet, for example, which is I intended not to give any recommendations on this workshop, but in this case I have to make an exception. I would really appreciate if you check out the Norland solo trumpet. Norland is a sample library company, I think from Sweden.
Probably somewhere in the north.
Yes, for sure. I'm not sure if it's Norway or Sweden, but I think it's Sweden. And it's an upcoming company, and this solo trumpet is absolutely free. Costs nothing. Oops. It's an advertisement offer for the users. Of course, they want to sell libraries, but this one is really free, and and you can give, of course, a benefit. So you can pay £5 or £10 or whatever for this kind of buy me a coffee method, right? But it's worth 100 euros if you listen to the sound of this library. It's so crazy, freaking great.
Still mute.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, would you do me a favor and unmute me?
Here we
You
go.
are really kind. So, oh, that was my fault. Sorry. It has a really
Nice tone.
nice.
I didn't know you could play trumpet.
No, me neither.
Yeah, great. Very interesting.
It's free. It's freaking free. And I have paid money for instruments that sound much worse than this one. And if you now put this melody here, hopefully. You hear this.
Yeah, but that's brass.
That's brass.
It makes it heroic and
Correct. You're right.
Yeah.
But if you now put in the clarinet, you will not hear the clarinet anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
And even the violins, they have to fight.
It's just the
Yes,
upper tones.
2,000,
that-
3,000 hertz,
Yeah.
whatever. So it's totally clear that a solo trumpet like this, it wants to have its own space where to play, and all other instruments, they have to say, okay, go in front, make your deal, leave me alone. This is really the important thing about it. If it's in an ensemble, if you have more than one trumpet, if you have more brass, like horns and tubas and French horns and whatever, the sound gets wider, the sound gets full, but you need to bring this into balance with your strings and your woodwinds and all the other things together. This is something you need to practice. There is no rule how to do it the right way. The right way is the way when you have the impression that you hear all the elements in any way. It's not possible to make everything audible, right? But the frequencies are still there. So even if I now play this part without any, I just play it like it is. So you hear the trumpet. It's really there. Much too loud. So we need to put it down. Maybe we put this in a different space. I think we copy this to the beginning here.
Yeah.
To have it in the right context.
With the horns together, it sounds nice. Eh?
Of course. But as we are here in the intro of this piece, there are too many instruments at once, right? Because the job would be to introduce the instruments one by one, not everything together. This is a mistake which is often made. You try to bring everything at once. Don't do this. Be patient. Be patient when you are advertising your instruments, when you want to present your instruments in the right way, and build it up so that there is some kind of development in your track,
and some kind of diversion also. You need to switch between the sections and the instruments.
Correct.
There need to be evolution and going up, going down, and dynamics and whatever.
Yeah, and So this is for this piece. I think for the closing, I have maybe an example what could be possibly interesting for another workshop where we are still in discussion about how and when and where. Where is clear when it would be here, but it's about composing and this harmonization thing, because this is a topic which is kind of interesting too, but it's a little bit more than this kind of sketching. And I just want to give you a preview of what could be possibly happening there. I have prepared a piece, and now we get really classic. I think maybe you know this from Gustav Holst.
I don't.
The British composer who composed the planets, and this comes from Jupiter, the Joy Bringer, and unofficially this is the second national anthem of United Kingdom.
Okay, this one.
It's called "Vote to Thee, My Country," and maybe you know it, or some of you know it from the funeral of Queen Elizabeth, where it was really it's an extraordinarily great piece of music. Maybe some people know it from Call of Duty. It has been used in a lot of occasions, and it's also the same concept. It's the melody which goes like this, right? This is originally from Gustav Holst. And I try to bring the harmonies as close to the original as Gustav Holst has intended this. The strings make the harmonies, they sound like this. Right. So this is the classical way of arranging the strings in the classical way of Gustav Holst, and bringing this together with some other instruments. Yeah, we have the cello, we have a flute, we have a clarinet, we have this trumpet. We have some vocals. And we have a sub bass, of course. So everything I did here is the same thing I did in all the examples before. We made a piano sketch and we sketched it out to a full orchestration. The point about reharmonization is how to bring this kind of piece of music into a different context, and how to make it sound different to what we have heard now, because this is the classical way with the harmonies that have been intended to be used. And now this is, I spilled this a little bit down, I rendered this out, but this is now a totally different sound impression. And I think this is a topic where we can maybe make another workshop in the future about this, because this is a little bit more advanced, and this sounds like this. So I have the chords here. It's a totally different tempo.
Mhm.
And then there's upcoming now a flute, an Irish flute. And you have immediately a different impression,
Wow, yeah.
right? And also different harmonies, because it's reharmonized.
I like it more that way.
This way?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely heartfully, yeah? Now if we go to a minor chord in the second part here, now you see we have this G flat major to D flat major, and now in this portion we go to B minor and to F minor and stay on this chord and decrease the bass line. It's totally different.
But it's still the same melody.
The same motif.
Yeah. Great.
And now, this is also interesting. We stay on this B minor chord. And here in this portion, when there come the vocals, absolutely different impression.
Nice one, yeah.
And this is something which is a little bit more technical when we are making reharmonization, but this is really something which makes it interesting to work on your own tracks or to work with other tracks if you just want to give a track a totally different character, right?
And that worked
And
pretty well on that one.
This is really what it's all about. But hopefully we had a you could get an overview about how to work with this kind of
More than that, I guess. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
And hopefully YouTube and the visitors also had a good impression. This is only examples, you know. It's not about having the theory all on your side. You have to make music by what you're feeling.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
But still, it doesn't hurt to know something.
No, it never hurted somebody to know something, but it's I think really it's a creative process, and too much theory in being creative can also be a little bit a kind of a problem.
Yeah, sure.
But try your best, and hopefully you could get something from this workshop that you can use for your future productions.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching the video, and thanks for being with us. And if you want to learn more about us, about HOFA-College, just visit our website, hofa-college.com. Have fun and a nice evening, and wherever you are, make more music.
And stay safe. See you.
Bye.